All right, welcome back. Two gentlemen are joining me right now. To my immediate left is Cordial Haka, who was the former MD of Consumer Microfinance Bank, and Rislanuddin Mohammed, former acting managing director of Unity Bank. We're looking at the health of banks today. I'm zeroing in on those banks, though we don't have a lot of time, but we'll try as much as possible to zero in on Nigerian banks because it's something that's been on my plate for a while. So welcome to you, gentlemen. Let me start with you. Former acting MD of Unity Bank, of course, which is a DMB, a deposit money bank. Can we have healthy banks in a sick economy? Are banks sick right now?
Well, I will, good morning. I will first take you back to the fact that, the economy was a recession, and you cannot insulate the banking industry from the recessionary trend in the economy. Everything has slowed down. Activities have gone down. There was a crisis in the foreign exchange market. We are an import-dependent economy, and 30% of loan book of deposit money banks was in oil and gas. 30%, according to the data, the Financial Sustainability Report of the Central Bank at the end of 2016. 30%. And we know that most of those loans turn out to be bad. Having said that, at the heat of the crisis, there was all this talk about whether banks are sick or not sick, and there was the issue of this systemically important banks issue, which we discussed last year on Sky Bank, and the need to protect them to ensure financial stability in the industry. Mrs. Martins came out clearly and stated that.
That's Tokunbo Martins, of
then
CBN.
Director of Banking Solutions. Yes, there were headwinds which affected all aspects of the industry, but no, the banks have enough fiscal buffers to absorb the shock of the systemic crisis arising from oil price decline. Even when oil price was going up, there was activities of Niger Delta, Avengers. And now we are lucky. We have three advantages, which we hope it will be sustained over time before we diversify the economy. Three advantages. Advantage number one, oil price has gone up to about $48. Advantage number two, we are given a quota waiver by OPEC. And advantage number three, there is relative peace in the Niger Delta. And if you see from the trend, yes, if you look at 2016, like capital adequacy ratio report, you can see that it has gone down to about average 14.76% among all the deposit money banks. And there are some that are up to 3.14% against minimum of 10%. The banks are categorized into three, depending on their level of assets. 1 trillion, 500 billion to 1 trillion and above, and then below.
Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 banks. Yeah.
But there are these so-called systemically important banks who control 88%.
So like the too big to fail banks.
Too big to fail, and true to them, they have displayed some level of resilience in terms of absorbing the shocks. Because when the data I read on the Financial Stability Report clearly showed that those systemically important banks have absorbed the shock, have developed the resilience of the crisis more than the medium and the small banks. But all in all, in average, the banks have been able to weather the storm. And if you can see from the trajectory of all economic indices, it looks like we are seeing the end of the serious recession that we have found out in. Serious one.
Okay, let me come.
I'm not saying we are out of it, but it looks like we have gotten it because the trajectory is all showing some negative indices.
Okay, I don't know if I would say that we are really out of it.
I'm not saying we are out.
Yes, but you're saying we are out of the bad trajectory. The worst is over.
You see, look at the GDP growth rate. Negative 2.24%.
Yes.
What was it in December? That is the last.
You are saying that we are seeing a lessening.
We are saying a lessening. This is what I'm saying. I'm not saying that we are out. I am one of those very pessimistic, because, like I said, take away any of those three advantages that we have, we still have a problem. We are still an import-dependent economy. Look at the foreign exchange market. The rate has come down officially. The rate has come down in the primary market, but we are still not out of the woods. Why? Because up to now, the central bank is a major player.
Good. Let me come to you, Mr. Ohaka. You know, non-performing loans in the country, in the banks, which you attributed to, especially in the oil and gas sector, so much. And we've seen a lot of non-performing loans, NPLs, within the banks. So with what Mr. Mohammed is saying, that of course, the worst of the recession is over, if we take a look at the figures. But I'm just, you know, not quick to allude to that, because it could be in nominal terms. But if you take a look at socio-economic terms, we're still feeling it. It could just be figures.
Yeah, I think I would queue behind you.
Okay.
My reason is very simple. The GDP decline moved from negative 2.26, as at the end of fourth quarter last year, it was negative 1.775. And as at the first quarter this year, it was negative 0.73. It clearly shows that we are coming up. By the time it gets to zero, it will now come into positive. Okay. But much as the GDP is a key factor in deciding whether we are going deep into recession or not, there are all other indices that we must also look at when you are talking about a recession. The economic activity is not only GDP, it's a key factor, but what about employment? What about inflation? What about interest rates? The interest rates regime is not very friendly now as we speak. And then the toxic assets we are talking about. Remember, what practically affected every bank was two key factors in 2016. One was the FX regime. Two,
was it pulling out of the TSA?
No. The government position on foreign exchange, and then secondly was the toxic assets most of the banks had. The portfolio of assets. If you have a portfolio that is not doing very well, and government says importers cannot import products, the traders cannot do business. Nobody was practically doing business because the 41 items shot out from the CBN window for foreign exchange, they're also in the market. Most of them took facilities from the banks. The oil, some of the facilities that are oil related also went practically bad. And the heavy toxic assets coupled with a lot of these banks that, by the way, that showed signs of good results in 2016. It was just because of translation gains, not because the operating environment was very good. It was translation gains that...
Okay, sorry to cut you short, because I'm also looking at time and to see how we can bottle up a lot of things, but I know we will definitely continue this topic on another day. If you take a look at the performance of banks, of course, you've attributed some reasons why some actually brought out some profits. I guess that the banks were also becoming a bit innovative in terms of jacking up their charges, because a lot of people have been complaining, even me, that I see incessant SMSs on bank charges in different forms. I'm not talking of the stamp duty, because it's not the account maintenance, this, and I'm like, are these innovative measures by which banks are coming up to make money?
Nancy, they are not innovative measures. In the absence of what else to do to improve your income lines, you resort to the very obvious.
So they cut our heads, the clients or the customers? Yes, because what should the banks do? Intermediary role, isn't it?
Yes.
They shouldn't sit down in their banks, like I've always said, armchair banking, which they used to do, you and your colleagues before, armchair banking, and all the monies from government will come to you, and you borrow back government money to government with interest. But now it's not there anymore.
Nancy, we started from consumer loans. Every bank was doing it. We moved on to margin loans for shares. Every bank was doing it. We moved into oil-related loans. You see, and each time we have this kind of situation, it is only the banks that have, very strong liquidity base, large revenue base also, and that are innovative in their the products they offer customers, those are the only ones that withstand, like you said, withstand this kind of problems.
But we're seeing some banks coming up with rights issue to raise more capital from their existing shareholders.
Yeah. You see, when you look at situation of generally of the banks, you know, yes, they have experienced challenges because of the headwinds, and of course they have to be rather innovative. I'm not saying
innovative, taking my
no,
money.
I'm not saying. I'm not
anyhow, discriminately.
Personally, I was overcharged. I had to complain, and I had to insist on getting the spurious charge reversed. You understand? So I am not in defense of any charge that is not supposed to be due. The point I'm making is banks have no option than to develop some ingenuity in terms of creativeness as to how they can be able to improve on the options were very actually two. It's either they improve on their profit, they are able to operate above water, and they are able at least, or they end up sacking their staff. Some do that.
Yes, because I think about 5,728 staff.
And that is not healthy for the economy. That is not healthy. That is not healthy for the economy. So the point I'm making is the major source of income for those banks, the foreign exchange market was in crisis, the credits were getting bad because the economy was rather import dependent and there was no forex to meet up with those demands. So naturally they have to develop some means of ensuring that they live above board. But
they live above board and give returns to shareholders too.
I don't think as at the last 2 years the major point of concern for those banks goes to the extent of returns to the shareholder. It goes, the major issue is to survive. And look at the data you are talking about, because when central bank comes and do what they call the stress test.
Stress test, yes.
They basically look at the NPL, the liquidity ratio, the capital adequacy ratio, and the corporate governance. Those are the issues that Skybank actually failed, and they had to be taken over. So those issues were more paramount to those banks. And look at it, when all these assets totaling about 1.7 trillion were taken over by AMCON, sometimes in 2011, 2012, NPA ratio was about 3.8%. Today is 14%.
So do you say that the greatest risks to banks now are NPLs?
Of course.
Are they the greatest risk?
As at the first quarter, for every 100 naira borrowed from the bank, customers are now able to return 11 naira 30 kobo.
Which is huge.
And a lot of those loans have been restructured, so that because at the time CBN asked banks to provide for those loans, a lot of banks could not really take the shock of providing for all those loans, especially those of them that are oil related. Now
let's talk about banks' interest rates, because it's it's no longer news. It's a common phenomenon in Nigeria. Oh, you want to start a business venture, the banks give you money at a very high rate, but of course, I remember vividly, anytime I think about this, I remember vividly what the Emir of Kano, the former central bank governor, said at his screening then, when he was being screened in national. He said, when he was asked that same question, he said, you cannot, banks are also part of the larger society. But do we give them that excuse that the interest rate is high? Of course, vis-a-vis the monetary policy. You're looking at me like
I just want to
you know, monetary policy rate, of course, I know where it is at 14%. Then the lending rate in the country about 22, 25, even up to 30%. So the banks shouldn't be blamed?
No,
they shouldn't.
Look, Nancy, when an economy is in recession, this is known by everybody.
Even when we were not in recession, the banks were
the
banks' lending rates were high.
No, let's talk about the current.
Yeah.
Because there will be no time to talk about all
the past.
Yes, let's talk about the current. When an economy is in recession, in 2007, 2008 financial crisis, the U.S. Fed rate reduced their rate to almost 0%. It is still 0.5.
Yes, that's the U.S.
In
Fed.
the Bank of England, the same. and Eurozone 0%. Why do they do that? It's to stimulate the economy, to enable people get more money and to improve activity. Typical Keynesian economic
system. So are you saying that the CBN should drop the...
No, the CBN...
Of course, the MPC meeting, I think, is this next week or so.
I think it is apt for CBN to look at their monetary policy rate, because the monetary policy rate is the yardstick within which banks look. You can blame the banks if you say MPR is 8% and banks are lending at 20%, then you can blame the banks. But when you put MPR at 14% and treasury bills bond rate get all in yield getting to about 22%, actually 16.7% or thereabouts, then how do we expect anybody to be lent, to be provided a credit at anything less than the cost of the fund?
Okay, as we end the program,
it's simply impracticable.
Do banks have sufficient capital right now to absorb expected losses? Do they have sufficient capital?
I do not think they do. And the reason why my friend in the studio, my initial comment was that even though we are getting out of the woods, I mean, with recession, I don't see the banks doing any miracle between now and maybe the end of the year. Perhaps in 2018, there could be some, good news for us. But for the remaining part of 2017, until banks do what is right, if inflation is as high as 16% and NPR is at 14%, and all the other unemployment rate is very high,
poverty.
I'm looking at all those other indices. Yeah. Now, who will go to the bank and ask for money at that rate? What will you use it to do when you come out, when you want to invest, when you want to trade, when you want to run your business? You see that the spiral effect of high interest rate, inflation and all that will erode every single attempt you make to make profit in your business.
I also do need to say that if our banks are not healthy, or if our banks don't do well, they won't pay a lot of taxes, isn't it? Because the banks also pay taxes.
Yeah, but they hide some of those. We understand some of those.
You understand what I don't understand?
We call it financial engineering. There's a lot of financial engineering.
The official data says it all. You can see there is a sign of a yellow, there's a kind of a yellow sign. The systemically important banks are supposed to have a capital adequacy ratio of minimum 15%.
15%. Yes.
Average is 14.78%. If you take from the average of the small banks to the medium-sized banks to the systemically important big banks, you are talking about between 14.78% and 3.14%. Okay. So clearly there will be need for
capital injection.
More banks will come out and ask for capital injection.
Like some have been doing with recapitalization or rights issue. But I think we'll leave this discussion now. We may continue sometime next week. We'll get across to you to see, because a lot of issues, especially that bank charges. That one.
That's what
that one is really getting to. Yes, because in a month you will be seeing alerts, different SMS.
Not only you, Nancy.
What is this?
It gets to me too.
Yes.
And every 5 minutes.
I'm telling you.
It's either 15 naira or
something. And when you aggregate this, it's a whole lot of money.
Yeah.
All right. Let me just quickly take these two comments from. Okay. Kunle says, nice point about the state of the nation. That's at the beginning of the show. The cattle rearers are above the law. Above the law. Ubedia said, Nancy vex today. No be small, but you made very valid points. Thank you very much. Sometimes you just need to vex and. Because a lot of things are not working in the country. I'm really perturbed that I want to see things working. All right, many thanks, gentlemen, for coming on the show. I've been speaking with Rislanuddin Mohammed, the former acting managing director of Unity Bank, and Kodi Ohaka, who is a former MD of Consumer Microfinance Banks. Microfinance banks is another issue for another day. Anyway.
Thank you, Nancy.
Many thanks for joining us on today's edition of the program. Thank you for tweeting. And of course, be the best you can be, and also be the change that you want to see. I am Nancy Nnaji. God willing, we'll see you next week. Bye now.